Hey there, everybody. Yeah, it's your good pal Dustin back with another episode of Turn It Around for everybody today. And we are on episode 68. But before we get started, hope everybody had a good Sunday. Hope it was blessed. Hope you got to worship God in whatever that is for you, whether that's going to church, getting in your car and jamming out to Christian music. Whatever worshiping God looks like for you, I hope you got to do it today, and I hope you had a good and blessed Sunday. So like I said, we are on episode 68, and we are on part 4 of our little series on the armor of God, and we are on the shield of faith. But first, of course, the armor of God can be found in Ephesians 6:10 through 18. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in his mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Therefore, put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground, and after you have done everything to stand firm then with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, with the breastplate of righteousness in place, and with your feet fitted with the readiness that comes from the gospel of peace. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayers and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people. So, we've done the belt of truth, we've done the breastplate of righteousness, and we've done the boots of the gospel, shoes of the gospel, whatever word you want to use for that. We're just going to say the feetwear of the gospel. So, we are on the shield of shield of faith, and taking it up. So, when it says a shield, what kind of shield are they talking about? I feel this is fairly important just for context. So the type of shield referred to was likely the Roman scutum, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but something like that shield. This shield is as big as a door. This shield covered the entirety of the soldier's body from head to toe. Big as a door, probably super heavy, and was not only defensive, but it could also be used offensively to push back enemy soldiers. Like I said, it's probably a heavy shield. So you add your own weight to the shield, an enemy soldier is going to have a hard time pushing through you. Now, these shields were extremely protective. Like I said, big as a door, covered the soldier from head to toe, basically. Obviously couldn't cover their back, but they found a way back, or, up here, the top, like so. But to get around that with arrows, a group of soldiers with these shields could create a defensive shell around themselves called a tetsudo, tortoise, which translates to tortoise. This was especially useful against enemy arrows. So what soldiers would do is they would interlock shields. So you'd have one shield here, one shield here, one shield here, one shield here, and then you'd have like 3 or 4 soldiers in the middle that would put their shields up, completely covering the entire group so enemy arrows could not penetrate. Now, you might think, well, doesn't that make it hard to see? I would say they probably probably when they first started doing that, they might have had that problem, but as time goes on, they probably figured out a way to negate that. I would assume they had just the slimmest of space between each shield, probably something like this, small enough to where you'd have to be an excellent shot to get an arrow in there, but wide enough to where they could still see out. So that's my assumption. Obviously, I don't know for sure, but that would be my assumption. So when we talk about the shield of faith, we are talking about a big old shield, big as a door, that covers our entire body. And the shield is important. As stated, the shield is a great defensive tool, and it can be used offensively. We talked about in the last video how God doesn't only want us to be on defense, He wants us to go on offense. So another tool that can be used both defensively and offensively make it versatile and extremely useful. And though it's not the same type of shield, think of Captain America's shield. His shield not only deflects bullets, but can also be thrown and used to bludgeon. Again, Captain America's shield is smaller, more compact, but it's still, if he, does that little ball thing, it's still big enough to cover his entire body, but he has to actually, kind of contort himself to fit behind the shield. But then he can get up, he can throw it, and it bounces around. Obviously, normal shields wouldn't do that, but it bounces around, bounces off people, blah, 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 blah. And then he constantly uses it to whack. So, a shield that can be used both offensively and defensively is extremely useful in battle of any kind. Having versatile tools makes it to where we can keep said tool whether we are on offense or defense. In some instances, some tools of battle, they weren't suited for going on offense. So they were strictly used defensively. One such tool that I can think of is hot oil. During a siege at a castle, they would dump hot oil onto the enemies trying to get through the castle, catch fire on like battering rams and all that. But you can't really roll out a pot of boiling oil and have it be just as effective. That's an extreme case. I can't off the top of my head think of anything that someone would actually carry, but I just used an example that I could think of off the top of my head here. So, but some tools were pretty much only useful for defense. And a shield is meant to be taken up in all circumstances because it can be used offensively and defensively. It is our first barrier against the enemy's attacks. And let me tell you, the enemy will attack us constantly. Faith. What is faith? What does faith mean? Hebrews 11:1 says, "Now faith is the confidence in what we hope for and the assurance about what we do not see." You hear some people say we see the glory and beauty and power of God every day, which is true, but you can't say you see God in those things, but we have never seen God, like physically seen. There are reasons for that, but we have never physically seen God. It's like air, it's like the wind. We see the effects of those things, but we do not see those things with our naked eye. Yes, I'm sure you get a microscope and probably, maybe, I don't know for sure, but we can't see it with our naked eye. But we have confidence in our hopes that our air will give us air, will let us breathe, and the assurance that it's there because we do not see it. It's the same thing with our faith, our beliefs. We have confidence in the hope that God has given us through Jesus' sacrifice, through his promises, etc., etc. And we have the assurance that God is there even though we cannot physically see him. And verse 6 emphasizes how important faith is, because without faith, it is impossible to please God. Because if you don't have faith in God, how can you please something you don't have faith in? Like, even though air isn't sapient, it doesn't think, it's just there, people still try to, quote unquote, please the air by trying to cut down carbon emissions, cut down on wood usage, cutting down trees and all that kind of things, cut down on pollution, that kind of thing. All of those things would be pleasing to air because those things make air, I'm just going to say, less effective. I don't know the right word to use there, so I'm just going to say less effective. So that is how you could say people please air. The environment. That's how people please the environment. Even though the environment isn't sapient, it can't, do complex thoughts and all that fun jazz. Still, people still try to please it by protecting it, like I said, pollution, carbon emissions, cutting down on deforestation, that kind of stuff. Because we have faith that air keeps us alive. We have faith that it is there. We have confidence of what it does. And we can't please God if we don't have faith in God, because how can you please something you don't fully believe and have faith in? Satan's general strategy is to attack us in ways that will make us doubt God, that will make us lose our faith in God, while faith prompts us to believe God and believe in God. Satan will shoot many flaming arrows of doubt at us every day of our lives because he's trying to get us to fall away from God. That is what Satan's purpose is. But with our faith, with our shield, we believe the truth. We believe what God says. We believe in God. When we give in to temptation, when we give in to Satan's arrows of doubt, it is because we believe what Satan has to offer is better than God's promise. Maybe Satan promises you or offers you immediate gratification, and that's tempting because as humans we are impatient, and Satan wants to use that to make us lose faith in God's promise. But faith constantly reminds us that though the fulfillment of God's promise is not readily visible, we can't see it. We can't see the fulfillment of God's promise in front of us right now, because it is all in God's time, not our time. And again, yes, we as people are impatient. We want it on our time. Excuse me. But God does it in his time, because doing it in his time makes us stronger. It forges us in the fire, strengthening us. And so he makes the promises he made to us not readily visible, so that we can get stronger and stronger through our faith. But faith reminds us always that God is always true to his word. Our faith helps us recognize when Satan is attempting to plague us with doubts, and extinguishes the devil's flaming arrows. And those arrows come at us constantly. And because we are humans, there will be times when one of those arrows slips through, because we are human. But God will be there to pick us back up and to set us back on our feet, and set us back on firm ground, set us back on the path to the fulfillment of his promise. Because that is what God does. Faith reminds us that when Satan accuses us of the bad we have done, the condemnation that maybe even we think we deserve, faith reminds us that we are redeemed through Christ, and there is no more place for condemnation. We have been forgiven. Faith is one of God's greatest gifts to us. It is the means that we receive our God's grace and a right relationship with God. Faith keeps us strong. Faith is our first line of defense against Satan's attacks. Just like a shield was the first barrier between a soldier and the enemy arrows, the enemy weapons. Excuse me, sorry. We should always have our shield of faith ready and handy, so that we can not only defend ourselves, but so that we can push Satan back. So always remember to have your faith at the ready. As always, I hope everyone got something out of this. I hope I did okay. Sorry for the cough. I was starting to get a little tickle in the back of my throat, probably because I'm talking so much. So, apologize for that, but I hope people got something out of this. I hope that I worded things well, and above all, I hope that this increases your faith and strengthens your shield. And always, and as always, I ask that if you do like my videos, if you like the content I am bringing, please do consider hitting that subscribe button, like, share the videos with friends, family, whoever, so that my words and God's words can get out to more people. And always remember, my friends, that I love you, God loves you, and please remember to love yourselves and those around you, and to keep your shield of faith ready and handy. Until next time, bye!